My sister committed bank fraud to steal from me, but my parents pointed the finger at me for turning her in, so I told them, if she breaks the law again, call the police. I'm Jack, a 30-year-old guy, and anyone who knows me would say I've been on my own since I was 18. I funded my own education, worked tirelessly, and never relied on my parents for help. But apparently, that doesn't earn me a peaceful life. Instead, it makes me the family's default fixer for every crisis. It all started when my mother called out of the blue. My mom, Carol, isn't the type to call just to chat about my day or what I had for breakfast. When her name pops up on my phone, it's a signal something's gone wrong, and she expects me to sort it out. So when I saw her call, I braced myself for bad news. I answered, and she dove into awkward small talk, which isn't her style. "Hey, Jack, how's your job?" "Still in finance?" she asked, as if she hadn't ignored my career for years. I humored her, curious about what was coming. "Yeah, Mom, still in finance. What's going on?" That's when she hit me with it. "Your sister's in trouble." I wasn't shocked, just resigned. My sister Karen, 27, has a track record of creating chaos and expecting others to clean it up. Her messes aren't minor inconveniences. They're full-blown catastrophes that always land on my plate. Like the time she took my car without asking and totaled it while texting. She called me in tears, panicking, and like a fool, I dropped everything to help. I handled the insurance, covered the deductible, and let her off the hook because she swore it wouldn't happen again, but it did. Or the time she convinced me to co-sign her apartment lease because she just needed a leg up. 3 months later, she stopped paying rent, dodged the landlord, and left me to deal with the fallout. I spent months repairing my credit while she moved back in with our parents, acting like it was no big deal. Karen doesn't just mess up, she never faces the consequences. Someone, usually me, always steps in to fix it while she plays the victim. The worst part? She never shows gratitude. It's like she thinks the world owes her a safety net. So when Mom said Karen was in trouble, I didn't feel sympathy or worry. I was just exhausted from being dragged into her chaos, tired of bearing the cost of her recklessness. Honestly, I was surprised it took this long for something major to happen. I sighed, dreading what was coming. "What kind of trouble?" I asked, not out of eagerness to help, but to gauge how bad this one would be. Then she dropped the bomb. Karen had racked up $43,500 in debt. $43,000? I had to repeat it in my head to process it. How does someone even get there? Apparently, she'd spent money she didn't have. Again. But this time, it wasn't just credit cards. She'd borrowed from some shady people, the kind you don't ignore when they come collecting. And now they were after her. And Mom's brilliant solution? Me, of course. Why wouldn't it be? In her eyes, I'm the successful one, the responsible sibling, the guy who can always be counted on to fix the unfixable. It didn't matter that Karen created this mess. The issue wasn't her actions, it was my refusal to step in. "You need to help her," she said, as if my role as the family bank was already set in stone. I paused, letting it sink in. "How exactly am I supposed to help?" I asked. "You've done so well, Jack. You can pay it off for her," she replied casually, like she was asking me to grab some coffee. I let out a sharp laugh, not because it was funny, but because I couldn't believe her audacity. "Mom, I didn't borrow that money. Why is this my problem?" The silence that followed felt heavy, like she was stunned I'd said no. Then she went into full guilt trip mode. "She's your sister. Family helps family. Do you want her to get hurt? Is that what you want?" Her words came fast, almost desperate, as if my refusal was the real crime, not Karen's actions. I took a deep breath, trying not to lose my temper. "Mom, I've bailed her out countless times. And what does she do? Blows it on luxury handbags, exotic trips, and who knows what else. She never owns up to anything because you and Dad always rescue her. I'm done this time." But my words didn't seem to land. "She's struggling, Jack," Mom shot back. "She's not like you. She's not tough enough to handle this." "Struggling?" I echoed. "She's irresponsible. She spends money she doesn't have, and now she's in deep with some dangerous people. Instead of fixing it herself, she expects me to swoop in and save her again." "She's your sister," Mom snapped, her voice sharp. "Family sticks together." "No, Mom," I said, my tone steady. "Family doesn't exploit each other. This isn't me abandoning Karen. It's me refusing to enable her reckless choices. She needs to grow up and face the consequences for once." Mom wasn't having it. "Do you want her to get hurt, Jack? Do you want that on your conscience?" "I'm not heartless. I don't want anything bad to happen to Karen. But let's be real. She's a 27-year-old adult who knew exactly what she was doing when she borrowed that money. I told Mom as much, but she wouldn't hear it. She's not as strong as you, Jack, she said. You've always had it together. She hasn't. You can afford to help her. It's the least you can do after everything we've done for you, I snapped back. Done for me? Like what? Charging me rent the second I turned 18? Refusing to help with my tuition? Yeah, thanks for all that support, Mom. She went quiet for a moment, but then came back swinging. If you don't help, we'll have to cut you off. No more family, Jack. Is that what you want? I couldn't help but laugh. Cut me off from what? You don't support me. I've been on my own for over a decade. Your threats don't work. With that, I ended the call. After that, they all went silent. I wish I could say that was the end, but it was just the beginning. The quiet didn't last. I underestimated how far Mom would go when she wanted something. When I shut her and Dad down, they switched tactics, trying to guilt me into giving in. And when I say they pulled out all the stops, I mean it. At first, it was just texts. I can't believe you're letting this happen to your sister, one read. Then they got more dramatic. Do you know the kind of people Karen's dealing with? They're dangerous, Jack. I can't sleep worrying about her. I ignored them at first, too drained to deal with the manipulation. But they kept coming. Mom took it up a notch with voicemails, her voice quivering like she was holding back tears, though I know she wasn't. Jack, she said in one, Karen might not survive this if you don't step up. I couldn't live with myself if something happened to her. It was a masterclass in emotional blackmail. If there were awards for guilt trips, she'd be a repeat champion. Then Dad, Edward, jumped in. He's usually a bystander in these family dramas, but not this time. His voicemail started calm. Hey, Jack, just checking in. Then it shifted. Look, I know your mom can be intense, but this is serious. Karen's in deep, and we can't fix this without you. You've always been the reliable one. Don't let us down now. That line, the reliable one, grated on me. I've spent my life being the dependable one, and all it's earned me is more burdens and zero thanks. Reliable doesn't mean doormat. They didn't get the memo, but the guilt didn't stop there. They rallied the extended family. I started getting calls from Uncle Greg, who I hadn't spoken to in years. He acted like we were old pals. Hey, Jack, long time. How's life? I knew why he was calling, but let him ramble before he got to it. Family matters, you know, he said in that overly earnest tone people use when they're about to say something you won't like. Karen's struggling. We all hit rough patches, and sometimes we need a hand. Greg, I cut in. Did Mom put you up to this? He gave a nervous chuckle. Caught. Well, she might have mentioned it. I didn't let him finish. Look, I appreciate the call, but I'm not paying Karen's debt. It's not my responsibility. You'd think that would end it. But no. The next day, it was Aunt Linda. Then Cousin Sarah. They all read from the same playbook. Karen's in trouble? She needs help? You're the only one who can save her. I don't get why they're so worried about Karen. She's not some helpless kid who made an honest mistake. She's a grown woman who treats money like it's play cash and acts shocked when the bill comes. Worse, none of them even tried to see my side. When I said I wasn't willing to throw $43,500 at someone else's mistakes, they acted like I was speaking gibberish. But she's your sister, they'd say, as if that erased everything. The worst part? The smear campaign. Mom, in her infinite wisdom, decided if guilt didn't work, she'd turn the family against me. She started telling everyone in the family group chat, which I'd left ages ago, that I was selfish, ungrateful, and a total jerk. According to her, I'd forgotten my roots and was too caught up in my fancy city life to care about family. I found out when my cousin Caleb called. He's one of the few relatives I actually get along with. Dude, he said, Carol's been trashing you. She told Aunt Linda, you said Karen deserves whatever happens to her? I was livid. Not because I cared about Linda's opinion, but because Mom was straight up lying to paint herself as the victim. I set Caleb straight, and he believed me. Yeah, I figured she was blowing it out of proportion, he said. It's a mess, man. Mess doesn't even cover it. But then Karen herself entered the fray. She'd been quiet until then. No texts, no calls. I thought maybe she was ashamed for once. Nope. She was just biding her time. When she finally struck, it wasn't subtle. She texted me one night, not with a plea, but an accusation. I can't believe how selfish you're being, Jack. You know I'm in serious trouble, and you're just sitting there doing nothing. Some brother you are. Selfish? That was rich coming from her. Karen's whole life is a string of bad choices with someone else mopping up the mess. I didn't reply. It didn't deserve one. The next morning, she upped the stakes. You've got the money. Stop acting like it's a big deal. Just pay it off and I'll pay you back when I can. Like that was a reasonable plan. As if I were the unreasonable one for not forking over $43,500 to fix her mess again. I didn't respond. That didn't sit well with her. She went into full meltdown mode, sending long, rambling texts about how I was abandoning her and how I'd never understand what it's like to struggle. Then she added, "Mom and Dad always said you'd come through eventually. Guess they were wrong." That line hit differently, not because it made me rethink anything, but because it confirmed what I'd always suspected. This wasn't just Karen being reckless. My parents had been egging her on, convincing her I'd always be there to fix her disasters. I'd had enough. I stopped answering texts, ignored calls, and focused on my own life. Just when I thought they couldn't stoop lower with the guilt trips and family ambushes, I realized I'd underestimated them. They'd played every card in their deck, or so I thought. They had one last move, and it shattered any illusion I had about them respecting boundaries. I got a call from my bank. That's when things spiraled into chaos. The fraud department flagged suspicious activity on my account. Someone had tried to access it with forged documents that didn't match their records. They attempted to change my contact info and withdraw funds, but the system caught it and blocked the transaction. The bank couldn't give specifics, but they said the document suggested it was someone close to me. Someone close. I didn't need to guess. Karen. Who else would it be? The timing was too perfect. She'd just texted about her desperate situation, and when I didn't budge, this happened. I was furious. Forging documents to get into my account? That's not just desperate. It's illegal. I couldn't let it slide. That night, I drove to Karen's place, my anger barely contained. I didn't call ahead. I was done playing nice. When she opened the door, she snapped, "What are you doing here?" "You tried to steal from me," I said, cutting to the chase. Her face flickered for a second before she crossed her arms. "I don't know what you're talking about." The nerve. "Don't play dumb, Karen," I said. "The bank flagged your stunt. They told me someone used fake documents to get into my account. Do you even realize how serious that is?" She gave an exaggerated sigh like I was overreacting. "Oh, chill, Jack. It's not like I actually got anything." I blinked, floored by how casually she brushed it off. "Chill? You're seriously trying to justify this by saying you failed? You tried to commit fraud, Karen. That's a crime." She shrugged, completely unbothered. "What else was I supposed to do? You left me no choice. You refused to help when I needed it?" I couldn't believe my ears. "No choice?" "Karen, you had every choice. You could have owned your mistakes, taken accountability, and figured out how to fix this yourself. Instead, you thought stealing from me was the answer." She glared. "Don't act all high and mighty. Mom and Dad said you'd never let me struggle. They told me you'd come around if I pushed hard enough. I just had to wait out your little fit." I stood there, stunned. Little fit? It wasn't frustration in my chest, it was outrage. This wasn't just Karen being careless. This was years of my parents enabling her, feeding her delusions, and treating me like I existed to clean up her messes. "Unbelievable," I muttered, more to myself than her. "Do you even get what you've done, Karen?" "You crossed a major line." She rolled her eyes, doubling down. "I'm not the bad guy here, Jack. You are. You've turned your back on your family. If you'd just helped me from the start, none of this would have happened." That was it. The final straw. I took a deep breath, not to calm down, but to keep from saying something I'd regret. "I'm done," I said, heading for the door. But before I left, I looked at her one last time. "If you ever pull something like this again, I won't just cut you off. I'll make sure the cops know exactly what you did. Grow up, Karen. You're not a kid anymore." I didn't wait for her response. I got in my car, my mind racing. How had it come to this? How had my family become so toxic that my own sister thought it was okay to steal from me and blame me for it? I knew this was the end. There was no going back. But I also knew it wouldn't be that simple. My parents wouldn't let it go. Karen wouldn't either. And if they thought I'd cave, they were dead wrong. The next day, Mom called. I didn't answer. She left a voicemail. "Jack, your sister told me what happened," she said, her tone sharp. "I can't believe you threatened her like that. She's struggling and you're making it worse. You should be ashamed." I played the message 3 times to make sure I'd heard right. Karen tried to steal from me and I was the villain? It was so absurd I didn't respond. What was the point? They wouldn't see reason, but I wasn't letting it go. I called my bank and had them lock down my account. New passwords, 2-factor authentication, the works. I wasn't giving Karen or anyone else another shot at my money. Things went quiet for a few days. Too quiet. But I know my parents. They don't take no for an answer, not even after 100 rejections. So when I got home from work and saw their car in my driveway, I wasn't shocked. Annoyed? Yes. Surprised? No. I took a deep breath, parked behind them, and sat in my car for a moment to brace myself. I knew they weren't there for a friendly chat or to apologize. This was going to be another round of guilt, manipulation, and emotional arm twisting. I was already exhausted thinking about it. When I finally got out, Mom was waiting by my front door looking ready to deliver a sermon. Dad stared at the ground like he wished he was anywhere else. "We need to talk," Mom said as I approached. "I don't think we do," I replied. "Everything that needs saying has been said." She ignored me, as expected. "This nonsense has gone on long enough. We're your parents. Karen's your sister. This isn't how families act." I unlocked my door and went inside, knowing she'd follow. She did, with Dad trailing like a reluctant shadow. "You're just going to walk away while we're talking?" Mom asked. "No, I'm going inside my house so I don't have to stand outside listening to more of your garbage," I said. "If you're going to lecture me, might as well do it where I'm comfortable." She didn't like my tone, but I didn't care. They'd already crossed every boundary I'd set, so why pretend I was okay with it? Mom launched into her usual spiel. "Jack, you need to drop this stubbornness. Karen's struggling, and it's your duty as her brother to help. She's family." "Yeah, family, I get it," I shot back. "So let me tell you about family, Mom. Family doesn't lie, steal, or manipulate to get their way. Family doesn't expect one person to sacrifice everything while someone else skates through life without consequences. So don't lecture me about family." Dad finally spoke up. "This isn't about picking sides, Jack. It's about fixing things. You're the only one who can do that." I gave a bitter laugh. "Fix things? You mean pay off Karen's debt? Cover for her fraud attempt? Let her get away with everything as usual? No thanks. I'm done fixing her messes." "She's your sister," Mom said, her voice rising. "Do you know what it'd do to her if something happened? How would you live with that? And how do you live with yourselves?" I fired back. "You've spent her whole life enabling her, making excuses and throwing me under the bus when it suits you. You created this mess, not me. Don't try to guilt me into cleaning it up." Mom's face turned red like she was about to explode. "If you won't help, we'll have no choice but to cut you off. No holidays, no family gatherings, nothing." I stared at her, wondering if she thought that was a threat. "Mom, I've been on my own my whole life. Cutting me off is like firing someone who already quit." She opened her mouth to argue, but Dad stopped her. "Carol, enough. This isn't helping." He looked at me, his expression softening. "Jack, we just want what's best for everyone. Karen's made mistakes, sure, but she's still family. Can't you meet us halfway?" I was done. "Halfway? You're asking me to cough up $43,500 for someone else's screw-ups. How's that halfway? What's Karen bringing to this so-called compromise?" My anger was boiling. Memories of every sacrifice I'd made, every time I'd stepped up when they wouldn't, every moment they put Karen first. It all hit me at once. I pushed off the counter, slow and deliberate, and walked to the door. My heart was pounding, but I kept my face calm. No yelling, no arguing. They didn't deserve that much from me anymore. I opened the door wide. "Get out," I said. Mom blinked, caught off guard. "Excuse me?" "Get out," I repeated. "This conversation's over. You're not guilting me into paying Karen's debt, and you're not manipulating me into feeling bad about it. Unless you've got something useful to say, leave." Mom looked like she wanted to fight, but Dad gently took her arm. "Come on, Carol, let's go." She glared at me as she passed, her words dripping with venom. "You'll regret this, Jack. Mark my words." I shut the door behind them and stood there, silence. Finally. But it didn't last. The whole situation gnawed at me, and against my better judgment, I decided to dig into what was going on with Karen. Maybe curiosity, maybe I just needed to know how bad things had gotten. I called a mutual friend who still talked to her, hoping for some clarity. "What's up with Karen?" I asked. "I haven't heard anything since." "Oh, you haven't heard? It's rough," the friend said without missing a beat. "The people she owes aren't playing around. They trashed her car, smashed windows, slashed tires, the works. She's freaking out, says she doesn't feel safe." I should have felt pity or concern, but I just felt drained. She dug her own hole, and now she was facing the consequences. Of course, I knew this would only mean more pressure from my parents to step in and save her. A few days passed with no word from Karen or my parents. Just silence. It felt odd, like the calm before a storm. And sure enough, the storm hit. A letter from a lawyer. When I opened it, I couldn't believe my eyes. My parents were threatening to sue me, claiming I had a moral duty to support my family. They wanted me to cover Karen's debt and were ready to drag me to court over it. I was floored. After everything they'd done, they were willing to go this far. Part of me wanted to laugh at how ridiculous it was, but mostly I felt numb. This wasn't a family anymore. It was a war zone, and I was done fighting. The sheer gall of it was almost impressive. My own parents threatening to sue me because I wouldn't clean up Karen's $43,500 disaster? It was like they'd dropped all pretense of being a family and gone straight to hostility. I didn't need to think twice about my next move. I called my lawyer, who thankfully has a sense of humor. When I laid out the situation, he chuckled. "Jack, they've got nothing. Let them file. It'll get tossed out of court." Their threat was empty, but it showed how toxic they were, which only solidified my resolve to cut contact. That they'd go this far was enough. I realized I couldn't leave the door open, not even a sliver. I'd been holding on to a faint hope we could salvage something, but this was the end. I blocked my parents' numbers that day. No calls, texts, or voicemails. I scrubbed them from my social media too, and did the same for Karen. If they were going to treat me like the enemy, I'd treat them like strangers. I also had to set the record straight with the extended family. I knew my parents would spin the story to make me the bad guy, and I wasn't letting that slide. So I called Caleb, one of the few relatives I trust, and laid it all out. "Dude," he said when I finished, "that's wild. They really tried to sue you?" "Not yet," I said, "but they are threatening to. I wanted you to hear it from me because I know they'll start spreading lies." "Don't worry," Caleb said. "I've got your back. And honestly, good for you for cutting them off. They sound toxic as hell." That gave me the confidence to reach out to a few other relatives. Some, like Caleb, had my back. Others, like Aunt Linda, were all in for Mom. "Jack, they're your parents," she said, as if that excused everything. "You can't just walk away from them." "Yes, I can," I said firmly. "And I have. They've crossed every line, and I'm not letting them drag me down anymore." Linda thought I was a letdown. "Family's family, Jack," she said. "You'll regret this someday." "Maybe," I replied, not meaning it. "But right now, I'm choosing peace." That peace lasted about a week. Then I got a call from an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I picked up. "Jack," Mom said, her voice sharp and angry. "You blocked me?" I sighed, already regretting answering. "Yes, Mom, I blocked you." "Why?" "Why would you do that?" she demanded, as if it wasn't obvious. "Because I'm done," I said. "Done with the manipulation, the guilt, the lies, the demands, all of it." She scoffed. "You're being absurd? You think you can just erase us from your life?" "Yes," I said simply. "I can, and I have." She tried to argue, calling me selfish, ungrateful, cruel, the usual. But I didn't bite. I calmly said I wasn't interested in continuing the conversation and hung up. Then I blocked the number. After that, I doubled down on no contact. I told Caleb to let me know if my parents or Karen tried reaching me through him, but otherwise I wanted nothing about them. He mostly respected it, though he'd occasionally slip in an update. Months passed, and the longer I went without contact, the more I realized how much I'd missed out on without their constant drama. I had time and energy for things that actually mattered. Sure, there were moments of doubt, a voice in my head asking, "What if they're right? What if you're selfish?" But then I'd remember everything they'd done, and the doubt would vanish. Until recently, I had no clue what happened with Karen. Then Caleb called. "Hey, thought you'd want to know. Karen filed for bankruptcy." I paused, processing it. Well, I thought, maybe now she'll learn to own her actions. Caleb said, "Maybe." But we both knew that was unlikely. Karen's not one to learn from her mistakes. My parents kept up their smear campaign for a bit, but it seemed to fizzle out. Even their biggest supporters got tired of the same old story. By the holidays, I was relieved I didn't have to spend Christmas faking that everything was fine. Instead, I spent it with friends, my chosen family, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel like I was walking on eggshells. I could just be me, free from my parents' expectations and Karen's demands. Cutting them off wasn't easy. It was one of the hardest choices I've ever made. But looking back, it was the right one. Sometimes, you have to walk away from toxic people, even if they're family. It's not always simple, but it's worth it. Caleb still sends occasional updates, but I've made it clear I don't want to hear more. Last I heard, my parents were still trying to save face, and Karen was scrambling to recover post-bankruptcy. I wish I felt bad for them, but I don't. They made their choices, and now they're living with the fallout. As for me, I'm done being a puppet for their schemes. I'm moving forward, surrounded by people who actually care about me and respect my boundaries. I'm focusing on my career, my passions, my peace. And while I don't know what the future holds, I know one thing. I'll never let anyone, family or not, pull me down again. Thanks for sticking with me through this crazy ride. If you've got toxic people in your life, I hope my story pushes you to stand up for yourself. You deserve better. It's been 6 months since I cut my family out of my life, and I'd be lying if I said it's been all smooth sailing. I'm Jack, still 30, still living alone, and still determined to keep my peace. But walking away from toxic people, even family, doesn't mean the chaos stops chasing you. If anything, it's like they sense you're finally free and double down to pull you back in. This is the story of what happened after I drew my line in the sand, and how I learned that freedom comes with its own battles. The first few months of no contact were like a breath of fresh air. For the first time in years, I wasn't putting out fires for my sister Karen or dodging guilt trips from my parents, Carol and Edward. I threw myself into my work as a financial analyst, started hitting the gym regularly, and even picked up hiking with a group of friends who don't expect me to fix their lives. My apartment became a sanctuary, not a war zone for family arguments. But deep down, I knew the silence wouldn't last. My family's too stubborn to let go without a fight. It started with an email from an unfamiliar address. I almost deleted it, thinking it was spam, but the subject line caught my eye. "We need to talk, Jack." My stomach sank. I opened it, and there it was, Mom's name at the bottom. She'd created a new email account to bypass my blocks. The message was classic Carol, half plea, half accusation. "Jack, I know you're upset, but this has gone too far. Karen's in a bad place, and we're worried sick. You can't just abandon your family like this. Please, let's meet and work this out. We're still your parents." I stared at the screen, my jaw tight. The audacity of acting like nothing had happened, like Karen hadn't tried to commit fraud, like they hadn't threatened to sue me, made my blood boil. I didn't reply. Instead, I marked the email as spam and added the address to my blocked list. But the message lingered, stirring up that old voice of doubt. What if you're being too harsh? What if they really need you? I shook it off, reminding myself of the lies, the manipulation, the years of being their fix-it guy. I wasn't going back. A week later, the next wave hit. I got a text from my cousin Caleb, my one ally in the family. "Heads up, man," he wrote. "Your mom's been calling everyone saying you've gone rogue and turned your back on family values. She's trying to rally people to talk sense into you." I groaned. Of course she was. Mom's smear campaign was back in full swing, and this time she was painting me as the heartless son who'd abandoned his struggling sister. Caleb added, "I told her to knock it off, but you know how she is. Just thought you should know." I thanked him and braced myself. Sure enough, the calls started rolling in. First, it was Aunt Linda again, with her sanctimonious tone. "Jack, I heard you're not even speaking to your parents now. That's not right. Family's supposed to stick together." I kept it short. "Linda, I'm done discussing this. They crossed lines, and I'm protecting myself. Please respect that." She huffed, clearly unimpressed, but I hung up before she could lecture me further. Then came Uncle Greg, who tried the let's be reasonable approach. "Jack, I get it, things got heated. But Karen's in a tough spot. Can't you just talk to them? Maybe work out a payment plan or something?" I couldn't believe it. A payment plan? For Karen's $43,500 debt that I had nothing to do with? "Greg," I said, keeping my voice steady, "I'm not responsible for her choices. If you're so worried, why don't you pay it?" That shut him up. But I knew he'd report back to Mom that I was unreasonable. The pressure wasn't just from family. Karen, true to form, found a way to escalate things. I got a notification from my bank, another attempt to access my account. This time, it wasn't as blatant as forged documents. Someone had tried to reset my online banking password using my old email address, one I hadn't used in years, but that Karen knew about from when we were younger. The bank's security measures caught it, but the attempt was too coincidental. I called them immediately, tightened my account security even further, and filed a report with their fraud team. I didn't have proof it was Karen, but who else would it be? Furious, I texted Caleb. "Has Karen said anything about trying to mess with my accounts again?" He replied quickly. "Not directly, but she's been asking around about you, your job, your finances. She's desperate, man. Those guys she owes are still after her." I felt a pang of unease, not for her, but for myself. If she was desperate enough to try fraud once, what was stopping her from trying again? Or something worse? I decided to take action. I met with my lawyer, Sarah, who'd laughed off my parents' lawsuit threat months ago. This time, she was more serious. "Jack, if Karen's trying to access your accounts, you need to protect yourself. File a police report, even if it's just to document it. And consider a restraining order if she keeps this up." A restraining order against my sister? The idea felt surreal, but Sarah was right. I couldn't keep letting her actions threaten my life. I filed the report, detailing the bank's alerts and my suspicions. It felt like a betrayal, but I reminded myself that Karen had betrayed me first. The police report seemed to spook her because for a while, things went quiet again. But then came the holidays. Thanksgiving, to be exact. I'd planned to spend it with my friend group, a low-key dinner with people who actually respected my boundaries. The day before, I got a package in the mail. No return address. Inside was a handwritten letter from Mom, along with an old photo of me and Karen as kids, smiling at a family picnic. The letter was a gut punch. "Jack," it read, "I know you think we're the enemy, but we're your family. Karen's not the same person she was. She's scared, broke, and alone. That bankruptcy hit her hard, and those people are still threatening her. I'm begging you to reconsider. You don't have to pay anything, just talk to her. We miss you. I miss you. Love, Mom." The photo was a calculated move, meant to tug at my heartstrings. It worked for about a second. Then I remembered the lies, the fraud, the lawsuit threat. I tossed the letter and photo in a drawer and didn't respond. But the package rattled me more than I wanted to admit. That night, I couldn't sleep, replaying memories of when things weren't so broken. When Karen and I were kids, before she became a walking disaster and my parents became her enablers. I wondered if I was being too cold, too final. Then I remembered Sarah's advice. "You're not responsible for their choices, Jack. You're only responsible for your peace." That became my mantra. The holidays passed, and I stuck to my no-contact rule. But just when I thought I'd found some stability, Karen struck again. I got a call from my boss, of all people, sounding confused. "Jack, some woman claiming to be your sister called the office, said it was an emergency and needed to talk to you. I told her to call your personal number, but she said you're not speaking. What's going on?" My heart sank. Karen was now dragging my professional life into this? I apologized to my boss, explained it was a family dispute, and assured him it wouldn't happen again. But inside, I was seething. I called Caleb immediately. "Did Karen tell you she's calling my workplace?" He sighed. "Yeah. She mentioned she was trying to reach you. I told her to leave you alone, but she's desperate. Those loan sharks trashed her apartment last week. She's staying with your parents now, and they're all freaking out." I felt a flicker of guilt, but it was quickly drowned out by anger. Karen wasn't just in trouble. She was actively trying to invade my life to force me to help. I took Sarah's advice and consulted her about a restraining order. She helped me draft a cease and desist letter to Karen, warning her to stop contacting me directly or indirectly, including through my workplace or accounts. I sent it certified mail to her and my parents. It felt like a drastic step, but I needed to protect myself. Sarah also suggested I install security cameras at my apartment, just in case. "You never know with desperate people," she said. That hit hard. My own sister, a potential threat. The letter seemed to work, at least temporarily. No more calls to my job, no more bank alerts. But the family drama didn't stop. Caleb told me Mom was now telling relatives I'd gone off the deep end and was punishing Karen for her mistakes. She even started a fundraiser online, claiming it was to help Karen escape dangerous debt. When Caleb sent me the link, I saw red. The fundraiser didn't mention me, but the sob story about a family member refusing to help was clearly aimed at painting me as the villain. I reported it to the platform and it was taken down for being misleading, but the damage was done. Relatives I hadn't spoken to in years were messaging me, calling me heartless. I was done explaining myself. I sent a group email to the extended family laying out the truth: Karen's fraud attempt, the lawsuit threat, the years of enabling her while expecting me to clean up her messes. I ended it with, "I'm choosing my peace. If you don't understand, that's your choice. But I'm done being the family scapegoat." Some, like Caleb, supported me. Others, like Aunt Linda, called me cold. I didn't care anymore. Then came the biggest shock. One night, I got a knock on my door. I checked my new security camera feed. It was Karen. My heart raced. I hadn't seen her in person since our confrontation over the fraud attempt. Against my better judgment, I opened the door, keeping it on the chain. "What do you want, Karen?" I asked, my voice flat. She looked rough, pale, disheveled, eyes red like she'd been crying. "Jack, please," she said, her voice shaking. "I'm in trouble. Those guys, they're not stopping. They know where I live, where I work. I don't know what to do." For a split second, I felt a pang of sympathy. She was my sister, after all. But then I remembered everything: the lies, the theft, the entitlement. "I'm sorry you're in this mess," I said, keeping my tone steady. "But this isn't my problem to fix. You need to figure it out. Go to the police, get a lawyer, something. I'm not bailing you out." Her face hardened. "You're really going to let me get hurt? You're that selfish?" "No, Karen," I said. "You're the one who made these choices. I told you last time. Don't drag me into this again. If you don't leave, I'm calling the cops." I closed the door and locked it, my hands shaking. She banged on it a few times, yelling, "You'll regret this, Jack," before storming off. I called Sarah immediately, and we filed for the restraining order the next day. The restraining order was granted, covering Karen and, after some discussion, my parents too, since they'd enabled her every step of the way. It felt like a weight lifted, but also like a final nail in the coffin of our family. I didn't want it to come to this, but They left me no choice. Caleb kept me updated despite my request to stay out of it. Karen moved out of state, apparently to escape her creditors, but he didn't know where. My parents were still telling anyone who'd listen that I'd betrayed them, but their audience was shrinking. A year after the original chaos, I'm still rebuilding. I've got a new circle of friends, a promotion at work, and a sense of peace I never had when my family was in my life. But there are moments, late at night, or when I see an old family photo, where I wonder if I could have done things differently. Then I remember the fraud, the threats, the years of being used, and I know I made the right call. I don't know what's next for Karen, Mom, or Dad, and honestly, I don't want to. I'm done carrying their burdens. My life is mine now, and I'm guarding it fiercely. If you're dealing with toxic family, know this. Setting boundaries isn't easy, but it's worth it. You don't owe anyone your peace, not even blood. Thanks for following my story. Here's to building a life free from chaos, one hard-won step at a time.